Hi, thanks for joining me today. On Monday, there was a student that had a question about building shoulder stability. So we'll do a sequence today that's based around stabilizing the shoulders, but also kind of opening up some areas around the tops of the shoulders and the sides of the neck that get tight for a lot of us, especially if we're spending a lot of time on the computer. All right, so we're just going to start in the seat. And I'll invite you to find a seat that's comfortable for you. If you're not into sitting on the floor, feel free to sit on a chair. You can sit up on a cushion, that's fine. But however you're seated, just let your palms rest down on your thighs. And you can draw them back a little closer to your waist so that the tops of your shoulders aren't pulled forwards. And we're just going to start with a couple minutes of breathing and centering. If it's comfortable for you to close your eyes, do. Just start by taking a couple of deep breaths in and long exhales out. And on your inhales, you can try and breathe into your back just as much as the front of your body. And soften the front wall of the abdomen, your abdominal muscles, so that your belly can relax on your inhales. And notice how far down in your lungs you can breathe and also how far up. So we're just going to continue our breathing, but now as you inhale, go ahead and shrug your shoulders all the way up as high as you can towards your ears. At the top of your inhale, I want you just to hold your breath in, shrug your shoulders up as much as you can, and then let out a sigh and exhale to release the shoulders. And try and totally relax the weight of your arms. So we'll do that a couple of more times. Take a full breath in. And by the top of your inhale, you're squeezing your shoulders up as far as you can towards your ears. And then exhale and relax them down. Let's do one more time like that. And then go ahead and start to roll your shoulders forwards and up and back. So you're making circles with your shoulders in one direction. And as the shoulders come back, you can kind of slide the shoulder blades towards each other. And as they come forwards, you can slide the shoulder blades away from each other. Deep breaths as you're moving. And then just go ahead and switch directions and take them to the back and up towards your ears and then forwards. And again, use the muscle between the shoulders to pull the shoulder blades together and then really let that muscle kind of widen and spread apart. Now we're going to keep rolling the shoulders forwards, but I just want you to take one shoulder forwards at a time. So it's kind of like you're taking a walk. And as your shoulders move, you can just let your ribs follow. And try and relax all the way down your spine. And then keep alternating with your shoulders and start to move back. And again, really let your ribs follow as much as it's comfortable to. So the side waist can lengthen and flex a little bit, and you'll rotate slightly left and right. And then go ahead and come back to the center. And now bring your fingertips up to your shoulders, tops of your shoulders. We're just going to make big circles with the elbows. So on your inhale, reach the elbows up towards the ceiling, and then exhale to reach them back and down. As the arms move, you can really send your breath into whatever you feel is opening, to the length from your armpit through the tricep to the elbow, into the breast tissue, into the space behind the back. And just switch directions and go the other way. Good. And then you can release your elbows, and we're going to take the hands together and interlace the fingers, and you can just make circles in one direction with your wrists. And then switch directions and go the other way. Press your right palm forwards, and with your left hand, grab the tops of your right fingers and just pull them back. And then do the opposite action. Take the fingernail side and pull the fingers towards the palm. Okay, and then just switch hands. Kind of flex the wrist from the palm side. And then do the opposite. Alright. Now go ahead and bring both of your hands forwards, and you're going to bring your thumbs right into your palm, and then wrap your forefingers around your thumbs. And with your knuckles pointing away from your face, just tip the knuckles down towards the floor. And you'll probably feel pretty soon kind of a stretch in this tendon that connects your thumb to the radius bone. And this is really great if you have kind of like beginning of carpal tunnel, or if you sit a lot at a computer, it's a nice way to stretch the palms and stretch the arms. Right, and then you're going to keep your fists and just make circles with the fists, and then switch directions. All right, and go ahead and shake out your hands. All right, so from here, you're going to reach your fingertips out to the side. So if you're sitting on a chair, obviously your fingertips won't come to the floor. And they might not even if you're sitting up on a prop, and that's fine, but you want to kind of have a diagonal length from your shoulders down to the tips of the fingers. And as you stretch through the fingers, you're probably going to feel kind of an opening. I feel it in the front of my arm and the top of my shoulder, and even all the way up into my neck. And we're just going to spend a couple of breaths there, breathing into that. And as you breathe, you can, again, feel that you're breathing into your back and your front. Okay, and then keeping your hands like this, just nod your chin down towards your chest. And on an inhale, roll your left ear over to the left shoulder. And as you exhale, bring the chin back down towards the chest. And then inhale the right ear to the right shoulder. And go a couple more times at your own pace. Just taking your time, feel that the head can be heavy. And there's just a pretty gentle lengthening through the arms and through the tips of the fingers. And if it's comfortable, when the ear comes over to one side, you can start to reach the chin back and maybe up towards the ceiling a bit, so that you start to get into these long muscles that connect the skull down to the shoulder girdle. And the next time your left ear comes to the left shoulder, stay there. And as heavy as you can let your head be is great. Just going to keep reaching out through the right hand. And if this is enough in the right side of the neck, just stay here and breathe into it. And if you want just a little bit more, you're going to bring your left hand to the right side of your skull. And I don't want you to pull your skull down, but just release the weight of your hand. Good. And then relax your right arm completely. You can bring your palm back onto your thigh. And whether or not your left hand has been to your skull, please bring your left palm to the left temple. And try not to use your neck muscles, but just use your hand and push the head back upright. Then take a couple of breaths here, both hands down, just breathing into anything that you feel through the neck. And you might even notice kind of like a corresponding feeling into the spine. And often it might be like the opposite side in your thoracic spine. So that's the part of the spine that connects the ribs. Right, and then we'll take the other side. So go ahead and extend your left fingertips out. Roll the chin down towards your chest, and then bring the right ear over to the right shoulder. And again, this could be plenty. You could stay here or just breathe into your sensation. And if you want, take your right hand now and just let it rest. Let the weight of your hand rest to the left side of your skull. Good. And then again, we're going to relax the left hand, left arm. And you can bring your right palm to the right side temple and just use that hand to press your head back upright. And then release both hands down. And again, just take a couple of breaths here. Right, so we'll do one more thing just seated like this. What I want you to do now is really let your spine round or flex. And if you're seated on a chair, you might need to come forwards towards the front of the chair. But let your back move behind you and your head fall forwards and the tailbone kind of move forwards as well. So total slump. And let yourself just be here for a couple of breaths and really breathe into this back part of your spine. Let your head be heavy. And if it's comfortable, some of you might find it uncomfortable, but if it feels okay, interlace your hands behind your head and then don't pull again, but just let the weight of your elbows come down. When you're ready, you can release the hands to the thighs. And on an inhale, lengthen back upright. Okay. And then bring your hands behind your body, and you're going to come up on the tips of your fingers and turn your fingers in towards your hips. And I just want you to push your hands, push your fingertips down, and then kind of slightly pull, like you're going to traction the fingers in towards your bottom. And breathe now into the front of the chest, into the collarbone area. So the placement of the arms helps to widen the chest. And I just want you to feel that you could breathe into the front and the back still. So if it seems like you're pinching between your shoulders, you could widen your hands a little more out to the sides and really consciously direct your breath into the back body, so into the space between your shoulder blades. Good. And then go ahead and release that. All right, so we're going to come on to all fours in a second, but before we do, I just want you to feel your arm for a minute. And you could feel the kind of fourth finger or the baby finger side and see if you could just use your other hand to press into your left hand and feel your finger bones and then your wrist joint and this long bone of your forearm that connects your little finger and becomes your elbow point. So this bone right here is called the ulna. And on the other side, from your thumb, there's another long bone that comes more towards your inner elbow, and that bone turns around the ulna, and it's called the radius. So it radiates around the ulna. And then both of these bones connect to your humerus, which is your upper arm bone. And your upper arm bone, of course, eventually becomes part of your shoulder joint. So the arm bone, the top of it, fits into, it's a ball and socket joint. And you might know all the names, but this is the head of the humerus, it's the ball, and then the socket is called the glenoid fossa. And it's held, the arm is held by what's commonly referred to as the shoulder girdle. So the shoulder girdle is made up of a number of different components, but just basically there's a connection from your right below your collarbone, the outer collarbone, and then back into your shoulder blade or your scapula, which you can probably feel, and then into the collarbone and down into the breastbone. So the shoulder girdle kind of fits around your ribs, and it connects to the ribs connects directly through the collarbone, and you can feel how the collarbone connects to your sternum as well. And then if you find your ribs, you could follow them back and feel how they connect to your spine. So sometimes, often, lack of shoulder stability ends up becoming a lack of stability in the upper spine. And there's a number of things that we can do to address this, and today we'll just do two. So, first things first. Take your hands forwards, and you're going to place your hands kind of 90 degrees at an angle, and flex your wrists back. So imagine here that you're pushing into something, and that could be pushing down into the floor like a push-up, or pushing into a wall, but you have a little bit of resistance at your palms. Now if you're going to push forwards and push slightly up, notice what happens in your shoulders, and I think you might be able to see my shoulder blade, the back of my shoulder. So if I push forwards and then slightly up, my shoulder blade moves a little bit down. But now I want you to notice if I exaggerate that, I might end up kind of pressing my ribs forwards. And so what we want to do, what this student was asking for was Chaturanga, which probably some of you know from your yoga classes. So what we want to make sure is that as the shoulders are coming, kind of down on the back, or as they're looping down, that we're not also collapsing through the spine, and that we're keeping fairly integrated between the front and the back of the body. So again, this feeling of easy breath through the back of the body. Okay. So what we're going to start with is coming down onto a forearm plank. And you can come onto your elbows and grab a hold of your opposite elbows. And if you measure out like this is as wide as your shoulders are if you actually grab a hold of them. And then what I want you to do is just take your ulna bones down on the floor. So again, that's the bone that becomes your elbow and the outer wrist bone. And I just want you to push it down. And, excuse me, you can stay right here, or go ahead and extend one leg back and then extend the other one to meet it so that you come into a plank-like position. And we're just going to spend a couple of breaths here, and I want you to strongly push down through your forearms, really reach back through your heels and forwards through your head, and then try and breathe into the back of your body. So you're not collapsing down, but you're really filling that space with a lot of breath. And it's not so much about, a lot of work in your abdominal muscles as it is finding the floor where you feel it. So you're pushing down the elbows, pushing back the toes, and then feeling space. Breathing into your back, reaching through the head, reaching through the heels. So let's take one more full breath in. And then exhale, go ahead and release your knees down. All right. So we eventually will come up into a full plank position and then do Chaturanga. And the tendency for most people here is to roll to the outside of the wrist. This line from your little finger to your ulna and then back into the shoulder blade, it's kind of easier for most of us to bear weight that way. And it's less natural or less formed, I guess, for most of us to really extend through the thumb side when we're weight bearing, which would engage more of the inner arm, the bicep and pectoral area. So go ahead and come up onto all fours. And in your table position, let some weight come down through your outer wrist. And just notice how that weight gets distributed. And I like to find this muscle between the outer wrist and the base of the little finger. And make sure that I'm firmly planted in it. And then roll forwards a little bit. You keep that outer hand, but roll forwards and really connect with all of your fingertips. So the fleshy pads of the fingers right at the ends. And when you get to the fingertips, kind of roll your weight in. And that doesn't mean that you lose the outer hand, but you also start to roll in and push down this L shape between your pointer finger and your thumb. And maybe experiment with that a little bit. So you could let that all go and then find it again. So you roll to the outer edges, and I actually feel an engagement of my outer shoulders as I find the space underneath the little finger. And then as I press down all the tips of my fingers, I feel a lot of the muscle around the shoulder girdle turning on. And when I get into my thumb and my index finger, I can definitely feel my inner biceps and pectorals work. So we want to feel that the entire shoulder girdle is being supported by the hands before we come into plank pose. You are totally welcome to stay here in table. And if you want, go ahead and take one foot back and then the other foot to meet it. Okay? And again, we're just going to work with the same idea of reaching through the heels, reaching through the head, pushing down through the hands, and pushing back through the toes. And strong breath, beautiful breath into the back body. And of course, I forgot to say this in forearm plank, but as you're pushing down, there's maybe even a slight push forwards so that the tops of the shoulders are supported to keep widening. You take one more full breath in, and then exhale and come down. Okay. So, the transition from plank pose to Chaturanga is something that if any of you have practiced Vinyasa yoga, you've probably done it a gazillion times. And that transition, as well as the following movement from Chaturanga into up dog, and then the one after that from upward dog into downward facing dog, all of those transitions are tricky places where a lot of shoulder injuries happen. Obviously, practice and strength building is a really important part for most of us in our practice. So I'm going to just show a couple of variations that if you're just starting out, you can practice, and as you build strength in your body and as you build confidence, then you can work towards the following ones. And all of them are designed for shoulder stability. So first, before we get there, what I want you to notice, you can watch me and you can feel it in yourself, is that my fingertips and my toes can direct the movement of my entire body. So here my toes are tucked, and if I push them back, my whole body will move forwards. And here, if I push my fingertips forwards, my whole body will move back. So this kind of play is important as we work, just going to move this a second, as we work through Vinyasa practice. All right. Back on that. So my fingertips and my toe tips can move my whole body. And when they're pushing in opposite directions, it forms what's called an isometric action. And you can probably feel that in your own body. If you were to push your toes back but push your fingers forwards, you'd have kind of a concentric force coming into your core. And this is, it engages the abdominal wall, but it's really different than just tightening your abdomen. And play around with that, because of course abdominal support is important, but if you just do the abdominal support, it doesn't really help you. So see if you can actually find a way to push your toes back and your fingers forwards that support the front of your body. So the first variation, the knees are never going to leave the floor. We're just going to stay in table the entire time. And you're just going to start by rocking weight forwards and then rocking back. So here I'm going to push into my toes, my head's going to move forwards, I'll push into my fingers, my tailbone's going to move back. Okay? So feel how your whole body can support you. And now when we're going to start to come down towards Chaturanga prep, I want my toes to be pushing back and my fingers to be pushing forwards at the same time so that the front of my body is supported. I'm going to rock my weight back, rock my weight forwards, keep pushing my fingers forwards and toes back, and take my chest all the way down to the floor. Okay? So let's try that one more time. Go ahead and rock your weight back. Use the toes, rock forwards, fingertips press forwards and the elbows bend, and I'm coming down towards my chest. All right. Let's take that through into Cobra pose for more of a kind of classic Vinyasa variation. When I come into Cobra, my hands want to switch pushing forwards and start pulling me back. Okay? Rock your weight back. Use the toes, rock your weight forwards. Push the fingers forwards, let your chest come down. And now watch my toes. I'm going to use my toes and push them back so that I come all the way onto my belly. But my hands now pull back so that I can lift my chest forwards and through. Let's try it again. Toes tucked. Use the fingertips, push your weight back. Use the toe tips, take your weight forwards. Isometric support, come down. Pull the hands back and push the toes back. Cobra pose. Good. From Cobra, your transition is to release the chest and head and push up back to hands and knees. All right, so that's one variation to begin with. Second variation, more intermediate variation, is to come into plank pose to begin. So in your plank pose, you can do the same thing. Use the toes, rock your weight forwards. Use the fingers, rock your weight back. I'm going to rock my weight forwards and take my knees to the floor. But rather than taking my chest to the floor for this variation, I'm going to bend my elbows and keep my chest about halfway up. And then from here, I'll push the toes back, pull the hands back, and come into upward facing dog. Okay? So there's a little bit of a rock or a play that you start to develop between your fingertips and your toe tips. It's hard to talk and do this at the same time. But as you start to develop that integration, your entire body is supported. So rather than just trying to have stability around the shoulders, you have stability from the tips of your fingers and then from your toes all the way up through your spine and core. So intermediate variation again. Come into plank pose. Okay. Inhale, come forwards. Take the knees down, exhale, bend the elbows halfway. On your inhale breath, push the toes to come forwards onto the hands. Hands pull back, upward facing dog. Good. All right, so for the full variation, what we want to do is find that nice rock between Chaturanga and upward facing dog. And in your upward facing dog, the hands again are important. The more that the hands pull back, the more that the chest can open forwards. But I want you to also think about bringing your whole spine forwards. So it's not just the chest pushing forwards and up, but the pelvis wants to follow. So you're bringing the whole front side of the spine, the belly, and the groins with you. And your feet are helping you get there. Come into your plank position. Inhale, come forwards. Exhale, Chaturanga. Use the toes and inhale, come all the way up, upward facing dog. You see my elbows are slightly bent. Important to make sure you're pressing down the whole hand, including the thumb and the base of the index finger. And then I'm going to inhale, open the front side body. Exhale, roll back over the toes and reach through the tips of my tailbone. Right. So let's just review. If you're pushing forwards and slightly up, the shoulders are supported to move away from the ears. If you have your whole hand pressing down, the shoulder is supported from the front, the top, the back, and in the armpit. So the tips of your fingers, this muscle underneath the thumb, and the little finger. And if you push them all down, it should feel like there's almost a hollow here at the center of the palm, as well as slight hollows through the middle joints. Not hollows, but kind of like a suction through the middle joints of the fingers, so that there's not too much compression through the joints of the wrists or into the fingers themselves. The toes are going to help us. They engage the entire body to keep the spine supported. So again, the hands and the spine are both doing their bit to support the shoulders and the ribs. And we're focusing a lot on breathing into the back body just as much as the front. Right. So go ahead and if you're sitting on the floor, you're just going to shift your weight over onto your left hip and bend both knees out to the side. And then you can grab a hold of your right ankle with your right hand. We're just going to kind of relax now through what we've been working on. And on an inhale, lift your left arm up over your left ear. Take a deep breath in. And then as you exhale, look down and continue to reach through your left hand. Breathe in through the side of your left lung. And then you're going to stay in your side bend and bring your left hand down and grab a hold of your shin as well. And now just let your whole spine round. Let your head get heavy. And from here, on an inhale, lengthen up. And we're just going to twist over to the left. So you can bring your right hand onto your left knee, come up on your tippy fingers on your left hand, and take an inhale. And then as you exhale, you can use your right hand to push the left knee and turn your chest back. And then let's just switch sides. Take your feet and your knees over. Bring your weight onto your right hip. Grab a hold of your left shin with your left hand. Inhale, reach your right arm up. And then exhale, take it over and turn your gaze down. Release weight down through your right hip. Breathe into your right side. And then grab a hold of your left shin with your right hand and let your spine curl down, belly towards your left thigh. And then inhale and come back up. And again, we'll twist the opposite direction, left hand onto the right knee, right fingertips behind you, take an inhale. And with your exhale, move into your twist. And if it's comfortable, let your head and your face turn all the way back over the right shoulder. And then on your next inhale, you can come back to the center. And we're just going to finish in a child's pose. If it's more comfortable to have your knees wide apart, that's fine. But go ahead and bring your head all the way down to the floor. And then just take your arms back and let the tops of your shoulders rest down onto your knees. On your next inhale, roll all the way back up. So in your kneeling position, bring your hands together. And you can really feel your shoulder girdle support in this kind of prayer position. But if you just press the very top parts of your fingers, these fleshy pads of the fingers, into each other, and not very hard, but just lightly, so that the length of your finger between the tip and the first knuckle flexes gently, and it creates kind of a hollowing or an opening between the space of your palms. You can feel how just that slight engagement is really stabilizing to the area around your shoulders. And if you think about what's underneath your shoulder girdle, there are your ribs and then of course your lungs. So see if you can bring your breath fully up into that area, into the top lobes of the lungs, all the way underneath your collarbones. And you can think about the kind of 3 dimensions of your lungs and how the lungs hold the heart in the center. So soften around the back spine. And make a lot of space internally in your thoracic. Just feel how much volume is there. So you can have a full heart. Thanks for joining me. Hope you have a great day.